Hello you lovely lot, and welcome back to another video. I'm Katie and today we're gonna unbox and create with UpCrate. So as I open this box of goodies, I notice that there is that familiar clank of pencils in there. Also, our featured artist is Ruby. I think that's how you say it, and we have a very cute little print of a fox reading a book. And yes, my suspicions were correct. We did have coloured pencils. We also have a small bottle tube of masking fluid, a double barrel pencil sharpener, an eraser, a normal pencil and a paintbrush. So I guess it's going to be a watercolour pencil kind of box. Of course, we have the UpCrate magazine, which is always good to sit down and have a brew and read through before doing anything creative. Well, that's what I do anyway. So let's talk about the supplies. So we only had 4 sheets of ArtSpace 100% cotton watercolour paper, so I didn't particularly want to waste one of them on a swatch. So the paper I use is a 25% cotton watercolour paper. We have 6 watercolour pencils and they are by Lyra, and the colours are dark orange, oriental blue, delft blue, dark sepia, scarlet lake and viridian. The regular pencil we have is a H, and that is by Koh Noir. The sharpener is also by Lyra, and the paintbrush is by Colibri. I have no idea if I'm saying that properly. It's described as being an English watercolour brush, whatever that means. And of course the eraser is by Factice. We all know Factice erasers are pretty good. The masking fluid lifted up really well off this paper. It was a little bit difficult to apply, I must admit. It wasn't very consistent how it came out of the tube, and the method for getting it moving wasn't ideal if you want to do anything too intricate. Kind of prefer to use a dip pen and loose masking fluid, or one of those masking fluid pens with an actual nib. But hey, I'm just going off on one there a little bit. And this month's prompt is childhood dreams, which for me was a bit of an odd one. So as a very, very young child, and I suppose really up until I kind of started becoming a teenager, I was quite prone to nightmares, and I guess I didn't particularly want to do a picture based on those. So I sort of went with something a little bit more light-hearted and kind of based on fact. When I was a little girl, like about 4 or 5, my father used to make little functioning steam engines, and they were big enough to pull me along on a little carriage, I guess. They weren't massive. I wouldn't say it was something that you'd see like at a tourist park or anything like that, but every now and then the tracks would be set up in the garden and the little steam train would be tested. One of the most fun things I used to like to do was to get a little chassis and place it on the track and just, I guess, sit on it and be pushed along, or sort of push myself along on it like you would if you were sitting on a skateboard. And I used to love that, and I used to dream that I was at Blackpool, for example, and specifically on the Alice in Wonderland ride, which was my favourite as a child. Oh, and the ghost train too. I obviously had already sketched this out, but I wanted to do a little scene recreating something that I did enjoy about my childhood. I also had a little try at making something which had a bit of perspective in it, and that is not a strong point of mine, but it's something I'm wanting to improve on, and I guess this was a good vessel for that. I had already filled in the area on my hair with just a light layer of that coloured pencil. I didn't find that they, I guess, activated all that easily, especially with that incredibly soft wide brush that we had. I'm a little perplexed as to why such a wide brush was put in there and such a soft fibrous one. In my opinion, I kind of like to keep my details relatively fine when using watercolour pencils, because for me, using a watercolour style with a pencil means I want to get some intricate details in there. I know everyone's kind of got their own way of working with things, but it just seemed like an odd choice. The brush, in my opinion, would be better for large washer areas, using your regular kind of watercolours rather than a pencil, but hey, it's choices, right? Once those layers of colours had dried, I went in there and just used the watercolour pencil as a traditional coloured pencil, and that was to add some details into the hair, because you all know I like to do that. The paper was absolutely gorgeous, in all fairness. It was lovely to work with. It's a shame we don't get pads of paper anymore. That was an issue I've had before in the past, where there's just not been enough surfaces to work on. And imagine this is your first box and you've never done any art stuff before. You're very limited as to what you can do, especially when you're learning how to use a material. You don't want to use up all your paper and then have to wait until you can go out and buy some, and that's assuming you're able to do that. I don't know, I think the paper supplies have been a little bit on the stingy side just lately. And it's kind of weird, actually. It's been 3 years now since UpCrate started, and I remember backing them on Kickstarter all of those years ago and receiving my first box. And it's kind of weird comparing what we had then to what we have now. I don't kind of feel like we quite get as much value for money, and I know this is going to be controversial and a lot of people might disagree, but comparing it to the first boxes we had within the first year of UpCrate, we used to get loads of stuff in there, and even if they weren't a hit with me, I always felt we had plenty of stuff in there to work with. And I don't quite feel like we're getting that so much now. There's been 1 or 2 boxes where, yes, we have, but there's also been some where they have been somewhat lacking, and I want to get more than just one project out of a box. If I just wanted a one project kit, I would just go into an art shop and just buy a one project kit and then be done with it. And I don't know, like 3 years on, I mean, yeah, a lot of times past, prices have changed and that can be applied to everything, but I don't know, I just feel that it's not quite as good as it used to be. I think things like suddenly including the price of the magazine as part of the value of the box is a great example of, well, I love the magazine, I really do, but I can't create anything with that magazine. Personally, I'd rather just have something like what Scroller Box has, just a few pages, a quick update about the artist, what to do with your surprise and winners of competitions, and if any further information, like what we have in the magazine, I'd rather have a PDF of that if it reduces the printing costs and means we get a better selection of art materials, if you know what I mean there. And I think that'd be a good direction to take it. Like I say, I'm not dissing the magazine, I do enjoy reading it, but 12 months ago that wasn't included as part of the price and all of a sudden it is, and that justifies the price increase. I don't know. I don't want to sound too negative here. And this was probably because I just mentioned we only had a few sheets of paper. Anyway, you've seen what's been going on the screen there, and right now I'm kind of using a dip the pencil in some water technique, but again, I didn't feel like it massively activated or made the colours any more vibrant on the page, which was a little bit disappointing, but for me personally, that's never really an approach I use with these mediums. I just wanted to see how it would work out. Obviously, you've seen that I've put the masking fluid down there and the page is drying whilst I'd added the coloured pencil, and when it was fully dry, it was time to remove it, and for some reason, didn't want to work on this paper. Not only did it really not work in some cases, but it shredded the paper as I was removing it. And I thought, am I being a little bit too rough here? Let's use the eraser on it, and as you can see there, I am just pulling off chunks of paper, and that just kind of ruined the piece a little bit, especially when you've put all that work in and it's one of the last things you do. I was just a little bit disappointed there. And maybe it's down to the fact that this paper was 100% cotton rather than my test sheet, which was 25. So to try and rectify it, I thought I'd add some speed lines with the pencil. But yeah, a bit disappointed with that masking fluid. It actually kind of came through to the other side of the page, which I thought was really weird. Anyway, it's time to just add a few final details on my little caricature portrait of myself here. I must admit, despite the whole masking fluid scenario there, I am actually quite happy with how this came out. You know, if anything, it taught me how to apply a bit of perspective there. I also added a little bit of a stylisation, and it's not very often I draw myself, so there we go. I actually quite liked this deep brown pencil for the outlining, and using that sharpener as well, it did ensure there was a really good point there, so I can't fault that. And as well, I also got to have a little trip down memory lane whilst drawing this. I hadn't thought of this for many years, and this really did happen an incredibly long time ago. Not for a very long time either. In conclusion, I'd say this month's box was better than last month's, but again, it's got its faults, which obviously if you've made it this far through the video, you'll have heard me talk about them. Of course, let me know down below what you think and whether you agree, whether you enjoyed this box, and whether you share the same opinions with me on comparing the first box we got to now, as well as some of the earlier boxes to more recent boxes. I do understand that inflation is having a massive effect on all of these things, but surely there's got to be a better solution here, right? Anyway, I am just adding a few more final touches. I thought I'd paint the chassis a nice, well, colour the chassis a nice red colour, just to make it pop out a little bit more. Now, what do I do with those 3 other sheets of paper? I might turn them into a sketchbook. I do hope you have enjoyed watching. I know it ended up ranting again and waffling on, but I do think my points are quite valid. I'm going to leave a link to the first UpCrate box in the description, but if you want to watch some more videos, there should be some on screen right now. Of course, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you lovely lot on the next video. Bye!